Hey, I'm Kevin Bacon. I'm an actor in the movie.
I'm Paul Verhoeven. I'm the director.
I'm Andrew Marlowe. I wrote the screenplay.
And that's the lovely Lady of Columbia. Who is that supposed to be anyway?
It's a lot of people, I think.
Is it? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't...
They change
Never understood it.
It changes all the time. So Dirk Wick was the one that developed the project and basically brought you to the project, I think, Andrew, isn't it?
Yeah, he had been through a number of drafts with a number of different writers, and none of them had quite worked. So when he brought me on board, we reconceived the project as really more of a morality tale. What would happen to somebody? What process would they go through if they ever had the ability to become invisible?
How long did he have it? I mean, how many years had it been around?
Long time.
I heard 8 years.
Yeah,
or something?
8-9 years. I worked on it for a number of years too. We wrote a script that we could only get 85% of the way there, so we tossed out that concept and created a new one, and that's the one that ended up being this movie.
So the draft that I got was really not the first draft you wrote?
No, it was about the 7th.
Ah, I see.
And how long were you on, Paul, before we actually started shooting?
I would say half a year or something at the maximum.
And during that time, you and Andrew were working together?
Yes. Well, the people you see there, basically, I don't really want to talk about the people that you see on the credits there. Scott Anderson I worked with on Starship Troopers, and before that you saw some other people that I worked with before. Marion Rosenberg is an executive because she's my manager, and Stacey Loombrazer worked with me since Showgirls.
You have a lot of people that have done a lot of pictures with you, right?
Well, Jerry Goldsmith that just passed there did Basic Instinct, and Mark Goldblatt did Basic Instinct, Showgirls, and Starship Troopers before he did this. Also, Alan Cameron is working with me since Showgirls. So he did 3 movies, and Joseph Vacano, you see there, did 7 movies with me, included 2 in Europe. But he started here with RoboCop and the Total Recall, Showgirls, Starship Troopers, and this one. Alan Marshall is there with me since Basic Instinct.
And I've been with Paul since this movie.
So he's a newcomer, basically.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about him. It was a pleasant surprise.
But I was interested, also to see your team, like, on the set. I mean, even people in props and different, camera and stuff like that, are people that have worked with you before, ADs.
I try to surround myself with a lot of familiar faces, although it's sometimes quite good to do something completely different and change a DP or whatever, so you get a different style or whatever.
Uh-huh.
This is a real rat. It's a real rat. Even if it's picked up here, it's still picked up I must say, in a gentle way, although it looks a bit heavy. And it's a rat. And from here on, it's not real anymore, as you understand.
But we felt it was important to open the movie on a scene that would set the tone for what people were seeing for the rest of the film.
Of course, I never saw that scene until I saw the movie, so it was kind of fun for me, I'd even totally forgotten about it.
We have a lot of exposition to get out, and it's important to start the movie off with a bang so the audience will have the patience to sit around and get through some of the exposition.
By the way, I hate Twinkies, so thank you for that, Andrew. I can't stand Twinkies. In fact, I lobbied for something else, and Paul said, no, I think it really should be Twinkies.
What are you, a ho-ho fan?
I had a big bucket sitting next to me there.
What is your junk food of choice?
I would eat a tasty cake, being a lad from Philadelphia.
This is interesting. The distance between these 2 apartments was based on Rear Window. With my production designer, Alan Cameron, we started to look at Rear Window to decide how far the other side of the other apartment should be away from our hero's apartment. And so the Rear Window, where there's a lot of voyeurism going on, was basically a good distance, and we copied that in this movie. So the courtyard has the same distance as the courtyard in the Rear Window.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. It was a beautiful set. I mean, being there was just even seeing it, live was really amazing.
Yeah, it looks pretty realistic, although it's built on stage. This is supposed to be a moment of genius, isn't it, coming over you, Kevin?
A wash of brilliance. Someone asked me if I had to study this kind of molecular structure and DNA to play the part. And I said, no, I just typed and looked at the screen, and it's called acting, professional pretending.
I'm a goddamn genius. And this is another set. This is not realistic. This is also built on stage.
Unless I'm wrong, wasn't this close to our first day of shooting, right?
Yes.
The movie was so unusual compared to most films that I've made because we shot almost entirely in sequence, which is an absolute luxury for an actor.
Said it was a waste of time.
If you look at the computer, the images that you see there, like of her, when we see them on the computer, they're printed in. They were shot independently and are emitted into the computer, but they look like appearing on the screen, but they are not realistic.
Well, they were supposed to be.
They were supposed to be, but
it didn't work.
Our system
Much to
didn't
your
work.
chagrin, if I remember.
Yeah, I know. We tried to do it in a real way because the two apartments were very close together, but even the amount of wire that we needed seemed to be interfering with getting the image from one room to the other. And so ultimately we had to give up because everything was delayed and she was talking in slow motion and we couldn't repair it. So we decided to shoot everything separately and print it in later.
From an acting standpoint, it was a very odd scene to shoot because if you look to the screen, you see the other actor. The actor's not looking at you unless the actor's looking at the camera, which is not the screen. And then on top of that, you have the actual video camera that is shooting, or was it video or was it film? That was
No, it
going
was
to
all
be
video,
the actual
yeah.
image later on. So it was very confusing to know where to look.
What's the rush?
He cracked reversion.
You're kidding. When?
While we were sleeping.
You want to ride?
Maybe we should
One of the
take
things
our
I
own cars.
can't stand about Josh Brolin is that he
Tired
doesn't
of
do
the
any
sweeping
exercise at all, and he
around.
looks like that.
You're gonna have to tell
Guy
him
never worked out a
eventually.
day in his life.
I will.
I'm out there busting
true.
my ass every day in the gym, and I look like a wimp.
I think he drives a lot of cars, isn't it? But it's,
He doesn't exercise at all.
right.
With Sebastian, there's never gonna be a right time.
But this was really shot in Washington, as you can see. It's a helicopter shot, and it was just meant not only to bring Kevin's car there, where you see him driving into the shot, but it's also to connect the Capitol really to the warehouse where the whole situation is situated. Because this is the same shot as you saw before, then the camera rotates to the side, and in the distance you start to see an industrial area very close to the water, and underneath these two pipes there is the warehouse on the foreground that you will see here later when Sebastian drives towards it. So we try to make it, to situate the whole thing as much realistically in Washington as possible, so that people knowing the area would think, oh, this lab, perhaps that lab that is situated inside this warehouse is really existing.
It's a really impressive shot. How many takes did it take to get the timing down?
Not so, no, perhaps 10 or 15 or
Really?
something like that.
The
yeah.
helicopter shot?
Yeah, there was a very good helicopter pilot. We seem to be really knowing his job, you know. So
By the way, there's a lot of times when I was on the set wondering if I needed to be there, but that was actually me in that car. And if
Right.
anybody could tell that's me,
you can see it in the close shot, isn't it?
well, yeah, sure.
And this elevator, this is on stage. This is still in the warehouse, as you can see. The next shot, this one, is on stage, so that we could copy that movement of the elevator, which is partly miniature. And the second part is a miniature. The first part is real.
How do you cut the miniature into the real?
Where you have to match that really. You have to try to line it up when you shoot it in the miniature, so that exactly corresponds with the original, and to overlay the frames on the set till you find that it's exact match, and then you shoot it.
So there was no green screen on that
No, not at
down
all,
shot of the
no.
elevator.
Well, at the very end, when it goes very deep, the miniature
it goes
doesn't
deep?
extend that far. So even it is beyond. If we run out of the miniature, we get into a kind of a matte painting or something.
Okay.
Everything you see with these thermal cameras later. Of course, this is a thing that doesn't exist, but we invented that for the movie. These glasses that give you a thermal image. It's like a thermal camera that's right in front of your eye or something like that. So we constructed this kind of bit futuristic glasses. Everything that you see thermographically, like these shots of the gorilla, were all shot with a real thermal camera. So there's no trickery at all there. There's no special effects. It's just one of these new thermal cameras that are very precise and that give you exactly the image that you see all the time.
By the way, that's a man in a gorilla suit. And, of course, if it was a real gorilla, it would be warm, and therefore would be picked up on the thermal camera. But since it's a gorilla suit, it doesn't have any natural heat, so the gorilla suit had to be heated. So the guy sat there on the set, and they used a blow dryer to heat up the suit for the gorilla, which was slowed things down a little bit. And then he would get too hot, right? He'd have to cool off for a while.
Right. Yeah, it took a long time basically to get them on the good temperature. So you have a nice red and white area on his chest, and then at his mouth and eyes, that you can see where the eyes are and where the mouth is. If you don't heat it up, it will be kind of bland, and you cannot make any distinctions between the different areas of the body.
$10 says I nail her first.
These are dart guns that we constructed, but they are kind of mostly based on the concept that they use in the zoo anyhow when they want to tranquilize animals that escape or something like that. So they're pretty realistic, and they would function in the way you see them function.
This is a great scene for establishing the two characters' personalities. Sebastian being the very aggressive, outgoing one, Matt always being a step behind.
You missed.
Maybe that's because I don't spend my lunch hours practicing.
That, for instance, was a.
Put it on my
It was the dart was stuck in a green, some kind of green holder, right?
Right, in a green holder, and that was later matted or painted out and replaced by a part of the background that we stole from somewhere else. And so it looks like it floats in space, but in reality, when we shot it, was on a stick or something.
How can you morally justify injecting Isabel with the serum before you've even tested it?
Because it'll save time.
Fine, then you can mop up after.
But there's another establishing this of the characters, isn't it? Here.
Yeah.
Kill, more like liquefy. Lab's prepped.
Well, your objections are duly noted and summarily overruled.
Yes, sir.
It's tough in the action movies trying to establish characterization because you don't have a lot of time before the action starts. So you're looking for a shorthand to work with,
You said you wanted the best
trying to
of
figure out the right few lines you can put into a character's mouth so the audience can get an understanding of who they are and how they're going to play, what role they're going to play in the drama.
Here you can see the two different areas that we constructed. It's all one lab. In the background of Sebastian is the, let's say, the modern part of the lab, and here you see on the other side when she disappears is the old part of the lab. The idea was that the whole thing was situated in an old nuclear shelter or something like that, and that the Pentagon had given them money to reconstruct that to a certain degree, like you see in this scene, where everything is quite modern in the background. But if you look through the windows in the background, you can see the old machinery that was used for ventilation of the nuclear shelter and for other for heating up and whatever in the background behind the windows. But the construction that is around us is all steel and glass, and that is supposed to be provided by money of the military to make this group of scientists to enable them to do this experiment, and ultimately the results should go to the Pentagon, isn't it?
Yeah, my civil service friends assure me that the government labs look nothing like this.
One of the great things about this set was that it was, oftentimes when you make films, you have one room and it's disconnected to another room, and there's a fake exit or a fake entrance. Whereas in this set, it was one entire structure that took up an entire soundstage, so it was possible to do shots moving from one room to another without moving walls and without relighting as well. I mean, from a lighting standpoint, it was really pretty basic, right? Pretty staged.
Yeah, it's all fluorescent in general. In these, let's say, modern rooms. In the old rooms, we have old lamps that have a little bit more reddish light. So you have this very cold light in the newer areas, and like here in the lab. And later, when you see them walking through the other corridors that are not modernized by the Pentagon, we use another kind of light that makes it a bit warmer, but also gives much more variation in the light. It's lit and not lit and stuff. You have a more spooky atmosphere. Well, this is completely kind of nearly neutral, and as much, let's say, lab-wise, high-tech technological as possible. Again, all these shots that you see there later also when they stick the needle in, that is all done with some green platforms. They spray the dye, the blue dye sprayed on the green platform, and the green platform is taken away. Like in this case, when he sticks it in the arm, there is something underneath there when you shoot it, which is a green platform, and the dye goes into the platform and disappears, and what you see appearing there as colored red stuff is completely digital.
How did you pick that color?
I think we just looked at different colors and then thought this is the most vibrant one,
The other serum has a different color. Got
Yeah,
different
basically,
colors.
yeah, that's nearly childlike, I think, basically, to have two different colors, one for appearing and one for disappearing.
It shows up good though.
But this makes it clear to the audience that it's a different serum, I think, basically. Originally, we thought the two colors of red, but we thought it was too subtle, so we went for red and blue. Everything you see is digital animation, and it is all constructed completely in the computer, although based on anatomical maps and the construction, the anatomical construction of a gorilla. But everything is really digital and created in the computer.
And of course, keep in mind, all of us are here reacting to nothing. This is actually one of the few scenes in the movie where we really did have absolutely nothing to react to.
Right, everybody was playing these scenes around an empty bed and doing as if there was a wild gorilla going around here, like screaming and yelling, while it was mostly nothing, or me at the microphone doing something like that.
You did a great job of that, though. You were an excellent wild gorilla.
Thank you.
Have an intracardiac.
So it was kind of difficult for the actors really to believe everything because there was nothing there. That's really unique in the whole film, but because in all the other scenes, when it's about the transformation of Sebastian, Kevin Bacon was always there and doing his part, so that they had to react to something completely natural.
Again!
Clear!
Again!
Clear!
Even if you see the gorilla coming through there a little bit, all the hair, and you will see it also later in the scene, the hair that you saw there on his body is all digital.
Still erratic and stabilizing.
Oh, incredible.
That's the yellow stuff that's supposed to be, that's the formation of the lungs there that you see, building up from the inside. And then later, of course, you start to see how the muscles go over the chest and the ribs on the both sides, with the intestines on the bottom part. And the whole thing closes up.
We talked a lot about how we had to react to this because, of course, we have seen the gorilla become invisible, and this is not completely out of hand for us. But at the same time, it is magical that it's happening, that he is coming back from the other side. So while the audience has never seen anything like this, as scientists, this is it's not everyday occurrences, but it is something that we've experienced before.
Even here, this is not the. We shot it with a person in a gorilla suit, but ultimately we decided to do the whole thing, let's say, digitally. So whatever you see here is a digital image. It's not like in the other scene where it's a man in a suit.
Why did you decide to do that?
Because they couldn't make it fit very well. They could not basically match the, let's say, the digital hairs with the non-digital hairs.
Oh, I see.
And so they decided to do everything. What you see here is his name is Tom, sitting in the gorilla and doing everything, while the eyes and the mouth are operated with, let's say, with cables.
I think they have 45 different motors in the face of that gorilla, with the eyes, the eyebrows, the smiling, the cheeks. And it takes about, how many guys? 4 or 5 guys?
Yes, to operate it, yeah.
Off to the side.
Because the head of Tom, who is inside, is beneath the head of the gorilla, basically. So the whole gorilla head is like like you would like a puppeteered head.
Yeah, he controls the body and they control the face. And it's funny because the guys who are doing it actually make the facial expressions while they do it.
The scene that you just saw, we discussed that for a long time if we would leave that in the movie, if his behavior was a little bit too harsh there, and if it would not take the people out. But we felt ultimately that it was a good prelude to the evilness that takes over in the second part of the movie, so we left it in.
Yeah, the way Sebastian walks the line where you don't know if he's joking or being serious in his outburst to Sarah, I think that becomes very relevant later on when you're not sure exactly what he's going to do. Now, this was easy, right? No special effects in this?
No, this is all normal.
Day?
Yeah, this is character. Yeah. And this, I think, is a very important scene because it reveals a little bit the past of these two people, and it also, I think, gives you an impression that whatever she feels for Sebastian at the moment, that she felt things for him before. I would say. I don't know what.
Absolutely. You know, the thing about the scene is that you're trying to communicate to the audience what their relationship was, what it was based on, and why the relationship ended, and where Sebastian's kind of heading in his mind now that he's had his final breakthrough of reversion.
Look at the Capitol there in the background. I can assure you that there is no restaurant with a balcony that has an outlook on the Capitol at all. But we went on top of an old building that's there, and we constructed basically this outside restaurant, which is basically connected with an inside restaurant, but the inside restaurant is really on the first floor, while this is about on the sixth floor. But basically, it's so you go from one side to the other, and suddenly on a different level. And the Capitol is the surroundings are not meted in; it's all real. We're just standing on the roof there, and constructed the balustrade and the little lights and the tables are all built on an old roof. That was pretty scary because it was never used, but.
Was the Capitol? Did you do anything to the Capitol digitally at all itself?
No.
I thought maybe it was under construction or something.
No, we didn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
We tried to. No, we wanted to take some construction stuff out that was on the side, but when it got dark, you didn't see it, so we left everything in.
Oh, okay. We had a lot of discussion and actually shot it a lot of different ways in terms of how far she goes with this kiss or doesn't. How far she lets him get.
Because there was some fear of the studio when because this is the maximum scene where she nearly kisses him, but ultimately doesn't do so, because the studio was afraid that she would look like a pretty ambiguous in her
morality. It's like,
yeah.
Is this a character that we want to root for later on? Is she, attractive to the audience? And so there was a real concern about pushing that scene too far. The audience might consider, that certainly a betrayal of her new relationship with Matt.
But ultimately, I think we took the scene where she goes the furthest. Really, we toned it down and we went back to this because it feels the best way to express that there's something there still between them, but that she has decided for whatever reason. I would say, for me, I thought because she has to look too deeply into Sebastian's character to realize that a relationship between him and her ultimately is doomed, and that she broke it off because she felt that there was something darkish inside Sebastian's character, but that's how I constructed it.
Quantum sync with the visible universe and return him safely with no after effects. Well, we found that sending them to Neverland was easy.
Although we had permission to shoot in the Pentagon as well as on the outside, this scene, it seemed easier to do this on stage. So basically the room that you see there was constructed exactly like one of the rooms of the Pentagon, but it is on stage.
Primary DNA strands decaying on you?
Along with cellular bond instability.
How have you solved the problem?
I haven't.
What?
But we're close.
I was wondering, Kevin, as an actor, how is it dealing with the technical jargon in movies like this?
Well,
where you're trying to give it some emotion, but it's really kind of scientific gobbledygook.
Oh, I think that you first try to figure out, what it is that you're actually saying. I mean, I kind of joked before about not really knowing what the hell was going on the screen, but I think that if you have some kind of a concept about what you're saying, it makes it easier to play it. If you're playing a lawyer, you got to know what you're talking about. If you're playing a Marine, same kind of deal. You walk a fine line, like you say, between making it too dry and making it, lending too much kind of pizzazz to something that actually is technical. William Devane doing a great job in this small part. All the parts, I think, of the cast. I mean, the casting of that was really good. All the characters in the lab, they all have very specific personalities, even if their stories aren't as well developed as these three. They really make impression, I think. This is unusual that we got a chance to shoot here, right?
Yeah, I think there's only a couple of movies that were ever permitted to shoot in front of the Pentagon. And I think because they liked the script and they felt it was not unfriendly towards the military, although perhaps a little bit critical, because it still says that the Pentagon is developing secret weapons, but they seem to accept that as the norm. And so they let us in and we could shoot there, which was makes it a bit more believable, and seeing it in the background at least proves to you that these people seem to belong there.
And we got to have little sandwiches and iced tea with the Secretary of Defense, which was fun.
Yeah, and a lot of generals too, isn't it?
Yeah.
They were very friendly. I mean, they were wonderful to us. I mean, I don't know why we deserve that, but I hope they do that to every all groups that come to Washington. But they treated us with a lot of respect.
Was he insane?
It was actually great to get to Washington. It was fun to be at a location for a while.
Right.
So we did so much studio work.
And all on the same set. I mean, that set must have
set.
gotten claustrophobic after all that time.
It was nice. It was nice to get out and do something else.
And that's why it's essential in that set to have all the variations, the different lighting moods and textures and atmospheres because we spent so much time in there.
Yeah, again here this is a good example where you see the both elements of the scene of the construction. You see part of the nuclear shelter, all this concrete stuff in the background. Even you see the machines in the background there now on that shot, on the right shot. And then the steel glass stuff that is constructed by our group in front of them, in front of it, but it's still always visible in the background. But it gives it. I think the idea was for us to give it a certain threatening feeling that is behind the glass, and that basically like the evil is lurking behind all this wonderful technology. There's an evil force there, which is of course a metaphor for the character of Sebastian.
Talk about it later. I'm trying to make love to you.
You realize that we're risking our professional lives here?
Yes, Matt, I realize.
Then why do we agree to it?
Because maybe we both.
I think this is one of the most subtle sex scenes I have ever done in my life. You know, I mean, the amount of sexuality is reduced to this line.
You ever miss being with him?
Well, it's a scene that we talked about a great deal because
He's so
there are some versions that go a little bit further. But it's hard to have a serious conversation in the midst of a sexual situation, even though in real life it happens all the time with couples. It just...
That's what I tried first, and I shot it partially like that, with her going under the blankets and basically doing stuff with his genitals and whatever you did. We didn't see that, but it was kind of ultimately it didn't work so well. It was very distracting. You didn't listen to the dialogue anymore. So we do.
And it was supposed to be a scene of intimacy instead of a scene of sexuality.
Right.
That's good though. It's a cool scene. I liked it.
I was supposed to be the nervous one.
So here we are in the old part of the bunker, isn't it? Here.
But it's great. This kind of a shot shows how we were able to use the whole set because it's one, continuous Steadicam shot. Well, one break in the middle, but basically, if the magazine was long enough, we probably wouldn't even need it to break.
Yeah, you also see the light fluctuating now all the time. It's not constant anymore. He disappears continuously, like here, completely in the shadows. Then he lights up again, then it gets dark again, to give it a feeling of instability that is basically because later scenes in the movie play there, that we would use that as a kind of, again, a disruptive feeling, so you would not know exactly what's lurking around the corner.
Somebody asked me to tell this joke the other day, and I couldn't remember it.
I mean, it's interesting because it's not an unknown joke, but people really love it.
Yeah.
And every time I see you playing it, it's so well done that every time I start to laugh, I'll know the way you do it is so.
I was trying to get...
so real, It's such a. You seem to have a pleasure yourself, especially in this take.
Well, it's nice. Yeah, I mean, it was fun to do, and also I was kind of trying to get the idea that there's a certain amount of excitement about this and nervousness,
Yeah, but basically you feel very much because he cannot stop himself in saying all these kind of a little bit dirty words. And we won't go into the nudity issues here, I suppose. Huh?
Okay.
Well, I mean, I remember we spoke about how he was going to have to be nude. I mean, he's invisible.
Right.
So how do you do the transformation and not make it too distracting and So I guess we decided that it would start with the sheet, and then that we'd find a place to kick the sheet off, and I think it works really well because I don't think it looks like we're trying to hide anything,
And it just would have looked silly if he was wearing, boxer shorts and you
Right.
Well,
go
that
through
was the problem,
transformation, he's
basically.
invisible, and you got the boxer shorts.
Well,
sitting
then the
there.
boxer short would stay even if it's invisible, so you see some boxer shorts floating over the bed, and that would really defy the issue, isn't it?
In the middle of a tense scene, it would suddenly play as comedy.
The other thing is that people have asked me about, well, why did you want to, have all this nudity? And I said, it's very integral to Sebastian's character. He's a very, very sexual character. He approaches the world in a very sexual way, and his feelings about sex and power, I think, are kind of confused.
He's also very much of an exhibitionist. He likes showing off. He's got
Right.
the fancy car, he's got the fancy clothes.
Exactly.
Right.
And the idea that he's nude and moving through this world and brushing up against people. At one point, Elizabeth even suggested that maybe he's walking around with an erection all the time, which was pretty amusing if you think about it. He goes into the. He knows he's on camera when he goes into the room and he can be seen. I mean, it's a very...
We decided not to do that because it would have been. Would have been forced to take it out, even if it's demographically the MPA wouldn't have allowed us to do
No,
that.
of course not. It's amazing that we got this far.
Boogie Nights meets Hollow Man.
Right.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is for MPA rules, if you show genitals in a non-sexual way, it seems to be fine. It's only when the genitals are used even without erection in a sexual scene, they are forbidden.
I see.
Human DNA structure is slightly more complex. It may take more time.
Are you sure you pulsed it right?
We did it by the book.
Recheck the radiation sequence. It can't be non-reactive.
Frank.
Wait a second, you gave me the blue serum. What happened to the orange serum?
Yeah, I had to change it here.
Okay.
Wait.
So yeah, now you get to one of these transformation scenes, which are all based, even if Sebastian starts to change into a muscular man, is always based on his performance. We're always copying what he did, although we transform that later into a muscular man, which is a three-dimensional computer model, but that executes exactly what Kevin Bacon was doing. If you look precisely, this is all Kevin Bacon in a normal way, you know. This is just acting, and there's no special effects. Now the first special effect occurs immediately in the next shot, where you see it on his cheek and on his chest, and what you see appearing there, the muscular structure underneath him, is already using the three-dimensional model in combination with Sebastian. So with Kevin Bacon. So there are two things happening here. That is Kevin Bacon acting the horror of this transformation, but there is a model exactly coinciding with with Kevin Bacon, which is the muscular man that is coinciding with his body, and basically we are showing parts of Kevin and we're showing parts of the model, and they slowly change from one into the other.
It's really remarkable because this muscle man is not non-specific. It's very much Kevin. So even when Kevin's skin disappears, you can see his face. You can see his performance in it.
Well, they scanned. Kevin, you better tell that than us. But they scanned you completely in the computer, isn't it?
Yeah, in the computer there was also a lot of video taken, countless rolls of photographs, calibration of all of the measurements of my arms, and not only my body was scanned to the computer, but also a bunch of facial expressions. Anger, sorrow, anguish, along with vowels and consonants, and it all kind of gets loaded into the hard drive, and they build this guy, So, I mean, really, if you think about it, we're probably a few years away from actually making, a person look real, because really, if you take this guy and you just add the flesh and the hair, you're gonna have me again.
Yeah. I mean, there should be a reason not to use you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we better use you. So this is another model, of course. Now we go to the skeleton model, and so these muscular models go into the models with skeleton and organs, and then it goes into a model with only skeleton, and then the skeleton is a real dissolve into a form that was imprinted in the bed, kind of. Although I think this even digital, although when we shot it, we had his form imprinted, let's say, like made us indentations in the bed. But ultimately they decided they could do better, so they digitalized this kind of absence of Sebastian on the sheets.
Up until this point, I don't think I did any of this with a green suit. There was a performance reference,
right,
on which the muscle man was built, but it wasn't actually replacing anything green, right?
No. At a certain moment we made the real change and replaced you completely by the digital person, but you had done all your performance as a real person, as yourself, without hiding parts of your body or whatever.
Now this, for instance, I'm actually, well, not in that particular shot, but
even that shot, I think.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I thought maybe that was just the rising, falling bed.
Oh yeah, that.
But
one, yeah.
From this point on, I would be covered in green, with a hood, a green outfit, a certain percentage of my body being painted, whether depending on how much definition is needed, but contact lenses and teeth, so that all these electrodes, for instance, are actually attached to me in the green suit, and I'm right there under the covers, and those are my legs, and then I'm taken out later on. So all that's me, just...
Yeah, that's where he was in green. Some of these electrodes were attached to his real body, and a couple of them are added digitally. But whatever he does, getting up, he did that all in a digital way.
Of course, the background has to be...
And she pushes him, when she pushes with her hand on his chest, that's really on Kevin Bacon's chest. Although this again was done in a more abstract way because he didn't walk there. We made some reference shots, and then basically they copied that later in the computer. And the breathing here is added also later in it's digital breathing.
People wondered a lot, in a situation like that, or a situation like this, it's an even better example, why would I need to be there? Of course, even if you're there in a vocal way, there's certain nuances that come from a scene and things that happen in the spontaneity of actually shooting that you could not get if you tried to go back and add it later. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think, do we have a series of speakers placed around the room for this?
Yes. So that they look to the right side when you're talking. Although you are in one place here, but we send the sound to different places of the room, so they're always confused where it's coming from, and they react in a real way to where the sound is coming from.
And of course, we're advertising these people's vulnerability in not knowing where they are, and we're doing it in an amusing way here. But later on, it has consequences.
You see anything?
Where is he? You got him?
Sebastian.
Gotcha, Chief.
You guys have no sense of fun.
So there was no way to do it in a different way, I suppose.
Well, it's my idea, I think. This is one of those times when I see that sheet and I think to myself, if it was anybody else, I would know. I would know that it was me. There's something about
because the way you walk and the way you move your arms and
Yeah.
everything is so much basically the actor Kevin Bacon.
Oh, it's
that's
essential.
Yeah.
It's essential that it be you.
So you would
body
have
movements are
lost
very
all
precise.
that, and even if you would have put somebody else there, you would have felt that it would be a cheat. So I think the decision to put Kevin Bacon always in the middle of the scene, painted in green, blue, or black, I think was very essential for making the movie more convincing, in my opinion, and
Yeah.
probably in everybody's
Definitely
opinion.
I have a social life anymore.
I know, the workaholic's curse.
Carter's gonna be in by 6 to spell you. I'll be in at 8. And just call me if anything happens. I'll be fine, Lynn. Get some sleep. Okay. Bye. Bye.
These images of Sebastian there are, of course, were in fact pre-recorded digital images made by the digital camera and put on tape so we could use them when she would look at the monitor. But it's done in a very simple way with a real thermal camera.
One of the biggest challenges in writing this was trying to figure out what the audience would be looking at. You're dealing with a story with an invisible man, and I always felt the convention of the floating pencil was one that felt very much like comedy to me. So when Paul and I were discussing how to do this, we talked about it being a ghost thriller, and we tried to figure out various ways to manifest him. When he puts the sheet on, he looks very ghostly. You have the thermal images of him, and later on when we get to the mask, it gives a very skull-like appearance. So there's always something creepy or off-putting about his appearance.
The relationship with this character is kind of already established as a little bit of a struggle, power struggle. And of course, this is sort of what I was talking about. Is, the ultimate way for this character to have some power over her is to do what I'm about to do. And it's obviously he's starting to have fun with his invisibility.
And so much of Sebastian's personality is pushing the envelope and trying to figure out whether he can get away with it, whether he can get away with lying to the Pentagon. That's half the fun to him. It's a game. So he's doing this to see if he can get away with it and to exercise his power over her.
The indentations that you see there were done by a real hand, and later the hand is painted out. One of the puppeteers did that for her, so she felt comfortable. And but the whole we had to nearly big parts of the breast had to be replaced by a digital breast, so to make it look interesting.
Only you would be saying that, Paul.
A digital breast.
Digital breast.
The real breast had to be replaced by the digital breast. It must be a Paul Verhoeven movie.
I know you're in here.
I like this moment, climbing back into bed. Right behind her is nice. It's a nice kind of cross.
So how was your first night?
Of course, I would be in a green paint all over my face and green hood here.
Sarah mentioned you weren't in your room last night.
But you can see how we were trying to avoid, the clothing without a head. We always try to define the head somehow when he's in clothing, so it doesn't look like clothing bobbing up and down.
You don't want it to become
There's little things that you're as an actor, you're kind of you're left you're not firing with all your guns. You know, you don't have all your ammo because obviously our eyes are all very important to us and our faces, and so little gestures, you know, of the head and the voice. You try to hope that we're all envisioning what it's going to be and that it's going to go far enough. You know, just a little tilt of the head like that that's indicated by the electrodes. Does it say something like this little lean in? You know. You don't know if it's going to work at the time. You just got to hope that it's putting across whatever emotion is going to be there.
Well, it's interesting when we'd see the footage coming back, you know, before they had added the effects, you'd be talking to the other actors and we'd be able to see your eyes. And then the effects would come back and you'd be removed from the scene and the scene would play slightly differently. And I think that you had to make compensations in editing for that, Paul.
Yeah, you had to sometimes make it shorter or longer, and hope that basically you didn't lose too much, you know, because you add a degree of, let's say, mystery and ghostly appearance to the scene, but you lose, of course, the eyes of the actor, and his facial expressions even, and there's always a guess basically if you would be losing too much, so that the scene would lose intensity basically. And then only in editing, after you get the special effects back, then you can measure it and they say, oh God, you know, we need him badly, so we cannot make it too long, that scene, because then it starts to be ineffective.
Yeah.
It'd be freaky at first, but eventually it would settle down.
No, the question is, what would you do if you knew you couldn't be seen?
If you ask me, the whole thing gives me the creeps. I can't even take a piss without wearing my thermals.
Like anyone wants to see that.
How do I know?
She's so good.
Are you asking us what we would
I
do
mean,
if
this
we
was
were
written
back?
first, Andrew, isn't it? Where she has the dialogue. Later you decided to add the scene where she goes to the restroom that we saw before.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to see that uneasiness with one of your colleagues, given the way that Sebastian's been acting.
Right.
It's not over. It's just
One person commented on the scene, why is it only the women who are cleaning up?
No. I made sure that also Frank was getting up
Oh, yeah?
and put his. You know, he made that really to a point
Okay.
that he should go to the back of the room to put his stuff in the garbage van, because otherwise it was exactly that.
Yeah.
Yes. I try to be, let's say, gender conscious. You know.
Yeah.
This is one of the cheapest special effects of the whole movie, really. If the Coca-Cola bottle moving from one place to the other, and back and forward, is really not really a special effect at all. It's really done in the most simplistic way by having one of the people sitting under the table and putting it down or taking it away and putting it in another place. But it's very effective, I think.
Not my chance.
And perhaps I shouldn't have told you that. We can always take
Magician
it
shouldn't
out.
give away his tricks.
All right.
No. I think that they could figure that one out for themselves. I was just happy that we didn't show it digitally
Right.
floating across the room.
I see.
You would lose the impact.
Right. This is really Kevin sitting behind her, in fact, although he's supposed to be in front of her, but he is doing all the stuff with the exception of the lips kissing in this case, because he is back in her bag, so he couldn't do that. The movement of the lips is done later in a digital way.
Of course, if I had leaned in and kissed her, you would have had to replace most of her face, which would have been difficult, I think. It was
Right.
probably more difficult.
No, but nearly impossible. I don't think they have a really
I thought this was an
solutions to
interesting
that yet.
choice
No.
that you had her look straight into
Yeah.
the gun.
Yeah, she plays right into the camera here. Although you are very next to the camera, so that in the eye line of the camera you did that, and so the voice that you hear there is the voice as you recorded when you were shooting it.
That's what I don't feel. Get some rest. Got a big day tomorrow.
It was kind of strange that as I would come onto the set during this part of the sequence and be so incredibly freaky looking in this green and paint and contact lenses, that people started, I think, having a difficult time actually relating to me as a normal person.
Right.
And it made me actually kind of start to withdraw. It was not sort of unlike what the character is going through. I started really to feel like a freak. In fact, the fact that the cast would get made up in a different makeup trailer, and I would come in before them usually and start to get my makeup on, and I would stay afterwards. They didn't see me as a regular person for months and months and months and months, and it made for a very kind of odd sort of relationship. I felt like a lot of times I wasn't really communicating with them.
Well, it's funny, when I come down to visit the set, I couldn't really get near you because you had this cabal of special effects people putting dots on you between scenes.
Yeah.
Like, give you a little wave from across the room. You give me that look like, why'd you do this to me?
Why'd you do this to me? Yeah, right, exactly.
Again, from here on, everything what you see happening there is Kevin Bacon, partially replaced by the muscular man, but he acted this out completely, and then we replaced it. But when you see the skin coming backwards, that is basically how we shot the whole scene. So when he gets up and you see him moving towards us off the bed, then you come back to as he performed it, but everything else was performed that way, but then treated in a way that it became muscular like this. Now when you see him here at this moment, that's really Kevin with something over his head, and then basically when he loses again, the three-dimensional model comes through and follows exactly his movements, and now it's Kevin completely replaced by a three-dimensional model that they drag along, although from here on we used a metal framework to throw on the bed.
That's right.
Because it was too complicated to do it another way. So when they are pumping the heart, when they're doing this kind of heart massage, and the lungs, what you see in the following shots, they do that on a kind of a little metal framework that they push in up and down.
I was so enamored with the concept of a guy doing CPR where you could actually see the heart, but I had no idea what it would look like. They just did a remarkable job here.
This is actually my favorite sequence, the whole thing from the beginning to end. It's just, I love how there's that great kind of moment halfway between. It's very animalistic to me.
Yeah.
You know, between man and monster and flesh and bone, and it's
well, that
it's
one
my
close-up
favorite
shot
thing.
is one of the great shots, I think, where you see you see him pretty normal nearly, and within a couple of seconds you see the skin disappearing, and suddenly this kind of monstrous muscular structure comes forward and seems as real as what you saw before.
Yeah,
it?
it's really cool.
I mean, they did a great job by matching basically your performance and your features completely in the three-dimensional model.
Mm-hmm.
What about the others? We can't keep lying to them.
We don't have a choice. I'm gonna be stuck like this for a while. Gonna have to make a few adjustments.
This is a real normal latex that we made ourselves on the set, and then what she does there is completely real. Only, of course, Kevin is there with a green mask and with something over his eyes so that it wouldn't drip in his eyes.
It's actually just my whole face is painted. It was no mask because it needed to have the detail. For instance, you couldn't really use a hood in this case because you needed the detail of the eyes and of the ears. And the people, sort of looked at this a lot of times on the set as that it must have been the most uncomfortable, the most horrible thing. But to me, I didn't really mind it. It sort of reminded me of scuba diving because you just kind of breathe really slowly through the regulator, and it was actually not unpleasant. I didn't find it as claustrophobic as you might imagine.
This is a very sharp knife, and the scissors are also very sharp. But I remember that we put some metal things over your lips or over your eyes.
And over my eyes,
but
right.
you wouldn't put your eyes out.
No, it was a good idea.
Although when the eyes are missing, it looks like the scissors going into his eye.
Yeah, it looks like that, but basically, because it's still Kevin, of course, playing this, acting this, and but of course, if you stick these things in you, easily you would hit the eye. So I think you have metal things over it, isn't it? Something like
plates,
that.
metal plates.
Yeah.
There you go.
And this is the mask that became the bane of my existence for the next few months.
Did you spend time in front of the mirror trying to get expressions on the face?
Well, I just from having it put on every day, I would see it, and I mean, I'd know what could work and what didn't work. It's obviously an entire one single piece that's glued on and glued around the mouth and the cheeks so that it has expressions.
It was pretty unpleasant after a couple of hours, as I understood, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but I tried to wear it straight through one day, and that was the only day I ever did it.
Right.
For the rest of the shoot, I would take it off for lunch and then eat for half an hour and then put it back on. And taking it off and putting it on was a pain in the ass, but the wearing it all day was really impossible.
Right.
I wanted to jump out of a window. There was no window.
Come on, guys, out of the way, out of the way.
I mean, this scene is proving what has been asked several times. Basically, what happens to the food that he eats. You can see that what comes out of the food is invisible, although you see the molecules or the food itself hitting the water, but you don't see the food itself. So the idea was that whatever he eats or drinks, it gets absorbed by the invisibility factor and becomes invisible too. After a certain amount of time. Still, we avoided to ever see him eat without a mask, because we thought that if you see the pieces coming down towards his stomach, that it would be utterly silly.
What I meant was...
Oh, fuck what you meant! And don't ever tell me how hard you have it.
That was a pretty easy line for me to say. Don't ever.
Because
tell
I
me
gotta
how
wear the
hard you have
mask.
it.
All you gotta do is put on the lab coat, but I gotta wear the mask.
What you see inside the mask, if you look inside, where you see this hollow space there, of course, the back end of the mask, the rear end of the mask that you can see, the inside of the mask is a computer model. So when you look through the eyes and you see something there in the background, that is computerized.
What's amazing to me was the level of detail they got. You know, when he stands in front of a light source,
right,
his eyes almost glow.
Yeah, right. So that was all added later, because in reality, of course, he had green eyes with green contact lenses, and we meted them out and replaced them by what you would see normally if there would be an empty space there. But it is a computer surface that you see through the eyes, through the openings.
If I remember correctly, you lobbied for having as many mask scenes as possible without the sunglasses on, which of course was more expensive, but more effective.
Yeah.
Well, that's the rule. It's my rule. I just changed it.
Yeah, we added. There were a lot of scenes where he had in the script still the glasses on. We took some of that out because it took some. When we started to work with it, it became clear that it was so much more interesting to see an empty space there than.
And you also get a lot more performance, I thought. You know, when the sunglasses are there, there's something about that hollow expression and what Kevin's doing with his face there.
Yeah.
It's much better.
Yeah, and it's like you are more pulled towards the inside of his brain nearly, isn't it? When the glasses are off.
How's it going, Ed? Hey, Doc. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, well, you know how it is sometimes.
Work. I was beginning to worry. Your car hadn't moved.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ed. Everything's cool.
This is kind of a nice break, I think. Right, Andrew? I mean, in the middle of the movie to get a chance to get him out. And
yeah, we needed some breathing space. So it's really nice. And this scene coming up here where we confront the kids, that was actually Paul's idea. And I think it's a nice bit of comedy at a point where the movie can use it.
Yeah, it's as far as you can go. If you go too far with this kind of comedy that we discussed several times in it, to do more stuff in the outside, but it would all be light-hearted, then it would have been very difficult to come back to the second part of the movie that's much more creepy.
But what I like about this scene is that it's still a power play. He's manipulating the kids. It's very much within
I
his
think
personality.
this worked very well, and it's a nice intermezzo, but you could have gone much further, and then I think it would have been difficult to come back to this kind of evil attitude that is developed in the second part, because you would have had too much fun.
Yeah.
So we're back on stage here, huh? This is all built on stage.
I think this is the first thing that we ever saw projected, this little sequence. And it was pretty stunning. Now, not only do I not like Twinkies, but eating them in that mask was a real challenge, let me tell you. The Twinkies attacked the makeup.
Especially because you had to do it several times, isn't it?
Whatever was in the Twinkie would attack and start to melt the sides of the mouth of the makeup, so it had to be constantly reapplied.
I mean, if you listen to the music, you will find out that there's a lot of this so-called leitmotif going on, isn't it? And I mean, there's a reference, of course, is made in the music to the first scene when he looks at her, and you will hear that when Sebastian gets ideas, bad ideas or good ideas, that you will hear a certain leitmotif that nearly represents his soul throughout the movie. Because we lost his eyes, we felt that the music should somehow replace them and give him something that was lost because of the emptiness that you see inside now.
I think it's a really nice acting moment, Kevin, given all the limitations that you had with the mask. And
again, this is on stage. We built all this because it was easier. And in fact, these are the apartments that you saw from the other side. Of course, you can really walk from one apartment to the other. So Sebastian's apartment would be visible through the windows that are just in her back at the moment. Here. Jerry likes to compose, like you mentioned, with pauses of silence in between, like here. He stops the music completely and let silence and effects play, steps like that and breathing, and then picks up here again.
it's so much nicer than the heavy-handed music.
Right.
It tells you what to think,
Right.
it tells you what to feel, and it really gives it an emotional build.
He just that you'll
certainty.
see him doing that later at the mirror again. This we use this camera moves. Of course, that was our way in trying to portray Sebastian when you don't see him. It's his kind of point of view. He goes towards her, and he backs off again. Through the windows, you could see Sebastian's apartment. Now, of course, look at this shot. Basically, it's interesting because you would normally see the camera people walking through the shot here in the mirror. You would, they would be visible, of course. You couldn't avoid that, and they were there. The Steadicam operator and his assistant, and we had to paint them out later. Here is another moment that the music stops.
Were they wearing digital green?
They were all in green or black, whatever they did. Green, I think, yeah. And so it's still silent, the music, and then, bop, there it goes again.
It's a very tough scene because as it's played in point of view, it's impossible to give the audience an insight into Sebastian's thought process except how the camera is moved. So, you know, the decision to take something that was originally voyeuristic in nature and, you know, he pushes it further into, you know, the sexual assault. I think that's tough, and we're at a point in the movie where the audience has been, I think, with Sebastian along for the ride, having a lot of fun with the things he's been doing with his invisibility. And now that he starts to cross the line, I think it makes it much more uncomfortable. And this is where the Elizabeth Shue character starts coming up, and her point of view starts being, you know, a little bit more important to the storytelling.
Yeah, Matt, it's me. He was here. No, he took.
If you look at the extra scenes, you can see that we changed this a little bit around. There was another a shot of the rape that we felt was too explicit, although you don't see that much more, but there's a little bit different editing. If you look at the extra scenes that are at the DVD, you would see the original cutting.
Basically, it was a moment of aftermath which showed, you know, the girl in the bed crying, and the emotional consequences of his act, were devastating. And we felt like it might be a little bit too much and it might alienate the audience.
So after long discussions over
Long
3 months, we took that shot out.
In this case, when you're working with water, you for some reason, which I don't really understand, you use black instead of green. So my face and my hands were painted green, and that's actually, the water was actually splashed on my
I think it
face.
was more detail for the light reflection, isn't that?
Well, that's one of the reasons. The other one is if you work with green, basically you would have a lot of reflections in the water. So the water would get green too. Like when you later in the pool, basically you would have the same problem. Or in the rain, when you are basically when the sprinklers go off in the second part, then basically if it has a really blue or green color, everything around it will basically, like the water would take that color, and you have to paint it all out again later, which is a real pain in the ass basically. So that's why you don't. One of the reasons not to do that.
I saw your face, your clothes.
Sebastian, in public. Why did you have to go out in public?
I'm still project leader. It's my decision to make.
You're right. It's your decision. But if you leave the compound again, I swear I'll go straight to the committee.
I think this is an important moment in the movie, isn't it? This is where she really starts to face him and becomes a real challenge for him.
And for the first time, his power is really threatened.
So that's it, huh?
I think that's where she more or less becomes the leader of the group, isn't it? And starts to realize that basically she has to take a position to survive.
Yeah, this is where the story shifts points of view from Sebastian's journey to Linda's journey, where she has to assume the mantle of command because of the rules that Sebastian's been violating.
The committee, they do know what we've done, don't they? Shit, Lynn!
It won't matter if we can bring him back.
I can't believe you did that!
Sarah, you have to.
And once we go into Sebastian's monstrous descent, it's essential that the audience have a character that they can still root for.
Think she'll say anything?
No, she's in too far. It's not her I'm worried about.
Sebastian.
Yeah. He's been gone longer than the animals. What if it starts affecting his mind?
What if it already has?
Hold still.
This is you. I see you had a green suit here, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, green
So,
face, green painted face, and a green hood.
what do you mean?
When you were out in the world.
I just walked around, you know.
Oh,
This is
yeah,
one of
you
my
just
favorite
walked around.
scenes.
Come on.
I think it's really well performed.
Like what?
Nice subtleties.
Oh man, if it was me, and I'd be fucking with people, whispering in their ears and shit, I'd be hanging out at Victoria's Secret. I'd be the fucking
Hey! The fly that you see there is a digital fly.
Childish, don't you think?
I mean, he grabs when we shot it, he grabbed into empty space and did as if he has the fly in the palm of his hand. But of course, that would be very difficult to catch a fly. So we added the fly later, and they made a digital one that is floating in and out, flying in and out whenever we need it.
One of the things I love about the mask is when you can see inside it, but then also sometimes from a side view, although this is not one of them, you can actually see through it to the background.
Right,
The two eyes
you look
line
from
up.
one eye into the other,
Yeah.
and then through that. It's also nice with this shot when you put your hands under your thing that you see the light in the changing there, like inside.
Yeah,
And it gets darker because his hands take some of the light off.
It never occurred to me when I was doing that you'd only see one hand. That's just one of those things I didn't think about.
Right.
Well, it's a great moment where you're settling in with your power and you're really enjoying it, and the fly is such a great metaphor for
For
manipulation,
everything
for
that's going to
everything.
happen, of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
What you're going to do to the other people.
And it makes also this immediately creepy because although we all know that this is not a reality, it's played of course, like in so many other movies, it's played as a reality. But you would believe it because of what just happened with the fly.
Yeah.
That he would creep into her room and do the things that she imagines or dreams about now.
And what it really goes to show is where her mind is going, that she's become very uncomfortable with his new power, and she's unsure as how he's going to use it. And
But
given the relationship she's
Is she
had with
supposed
him.
to be digging it though a little bit? I mean, to me, the beginning parts of it looks like she's almost, sort of.
Well, she seems to be enjoying it a little
Enjoying
bit,
it a
but
little,
not
yeah.
completely.
Not
Then
com-
she becomes more discomfortable, I think, in the
Right.
second part.
Right.
Well, you originally had the scene basically after the fly, that she would have heard the conversation about the fly, about with Carter, the scene before.
Yeah, at the end of the scene that she's
Yeah,
looking down
right,
and she's
and
heard
that
what
we
they
would
said.
that would have prepared probably a little bit better for the nightmare because what she would have heard and seen with the fly would have nearly provoked this dream or nightmare.
Yeah.
And for some reason we never shot that. Basically, we thought it was not necessary, but in retrospect, I think it would have been helpful to put that in.
Damn.
Cellular bones are
If only we could do what Woody Allen does: shoot the movie, see what you need, then shoot the movie again.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
hard to do with the $100 million special
No,
effects.
they don't
films.
do that, And also the lab was blown up at the end, so we didn't have anything left anymore.
Guys, we're closer. That's what counts.
Closer. He just traded quantum energy for stability.
Just
It's ludicrous.
traded quantum energy. How do you say lines like that? I write them, but I can't even say them.
What exactly? Tell me how exactly does quantum shift work?
Well, the metaphor I would use is when you're watching a film, it seems seamless. People seem to move, but there's all this space between the frames, and that's the area that Sebastian occupies.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
What the hell is your problem? Matt is on to something.
Here, I think in this scene, from a mask point of view, here I had the most fascinating shots with the mask because of the light comes so nicely. We put an extra lamp there. I mean, that was all, of course, pre-planned, so that when he would sit in front of the lamp, you would really see this kind of glowing light inside, which makes him very creepy, especially when he says, "I have a gift now, and I cannot use it," isn't it?
Now it's a gift.
goddamn right it's a gift. And if you weren't so short-sighted to let me out of this cage to explore it.
Well, if you weren't so short-sighted, you'd be.
And in
out
fact,
there
in the
with
next
rest
shot,
of us trying to save your goddamn
what we
life.
just talked about, where you can look through, that's one of the shots where it is very visible,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You see the wall and the lights on the wall, even through his through the second eye.
You're not a prisoner.
Again, you know, we take this scene with this kind of dialogue and turn it into something that becomes, you know, a sexual thing. I
Right.
mean, it was very easy to have this scene and have it not be anything about this, you know. You know.
But also, Elizabeth really wanted to do the scene a little bit in these directions, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. She was
She
definitely the
wanted to
champion
play
of
the
that.
character. She never wanted to forget her sexual attraction for Sebastian, isn't it? I mean, she always wanted to have that available, although she would never give in to it.
Right. Yeah. And I started to think of him as the horny man. Again with the Twinkies. The Twinkie diet. Maybe that'll be the new weight loss program.
Right. Is there not something in American history in the last couple of years that somebody got mad or crazy or pretended that he got crazy because he was eating too much Twinkies and the sugar level changed?
The Twinkie defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you think about that? I was wondering, but somebody told me, oh, no, that he had that in mind. I said, well, I didn't realize that when I shot it, but did you have that in mind, or was that just coincidence?
No, when I was in college, I wrote a very good paper, and I wrote it while drinking coffee and eating Twinkies. That's all I had for the 2 days I was writing the paper, so it was a homage to my
it's
earlier
autobiographical.
years. Yes.
Oh, my
yes.
God. What else is autobiographical here?
Well, I can't tell you that.
Not even on the DVD?
Well, when I was in high school and I'd go to parties, people would treat me like I was invisible.
I see.
So, yeah.
Right. It's traumatic then, in fact.
Yes.
I see.
That's why I became a writer.
That special effect of the hair was just using a hair dryer. These shots, of course, again are done in Washington. There's a real house there. There's one of the embassies there in the somewhat richer area, and so we just.
What's this little song he sings?
I think he makes it up himself. You
Oh,
know?
he does?
Yeah. I've never heard that song.
It's so
and
bizarre.
I don't think we paid copyright for it, so it must be something that doesn't exist.
I can't even really understand what he's saying. Something about Buginio or
Virginio.
Virginia?
No, Virginio.
Virginio?
Yeah, but Virginio is, I don't know what full Virginio is, really.
Very strange.
So this is all real. This is all from the outside, but this one shot, when the latter part of the ladder, when the camera goes up, is again shot really at her apartment. So now we are back on stage. We are on the outside of her apartment, but on stage. The beginning, of course, with the homeless man was in Washington.
This is one of the few scenes where we kind of experimented with, adding some dialogue over my point of view later on, but really ended up with nothing, I don't think.
No, we kept something in there.
Is there something in there?
Yeah, I think what we left in was motherfucker.
Motherfucker, okay.
Right. Yeah, we had a lot of different things. But normally, you tried something about saying bad things about her, but
Right.
ultimately we choose to say something about Matt, really.
Yeah.
I don't see anything.
Hello? No, he's here. Yes, I'm sure.
Now,
I'm
if you, again, in the next area, the next about 6-7 minutes, if you look at the extra scenes, you will see that there was more here than after the scene of killing the dog. There were other scenes, like nearly a loop into the narrative that we took out because we felt that the story was not proceeding. And you'll see them in the extra. It's really interesting scenes, and they contain really nice special effects. But ultimately, we were forced to take them out because it was the movie had more strength, being a little bit shorter there.
It really is funny because those scenes gave Sebastian much more of an emotional build to the point where he turns.
Right.
But it seemed to do the movie a disservice in terms of the pacing.
Right.
What scenes was it?
There were scenes basically where before, in between these two scenes that you just saw,
Yeah.
there were scenes where we see her at home You see also Sarah discovering
and
the dead
confronting
dog,
Sebastian about the
and,
dog.
and
confronting me
discussing it
about
with
the dog.
Sebastian,
Right.
with Sebastian, and that was taken out because it seemed nearly to be superfluous in the narrative, and so.
And even the development process, the transition between the second and the third act was always kind of tough for us.
Yeah, right.
To
Right.
get it,
Yeah, we
get
tried
it quite
a lot
right.
of different ways,
Yeah.
and ultimately the best solution was just to keep it short, basically.
Part of the difficulty, I think, is the fact that the movie does switch points of view, and it's hard to get up to speed on the other people's stories when we've been so invested in Sebastian.
Right.
And then we start to lose track of him here because he's out doing things and we're not sure where he is.
Shouldn't we wait and talk to him? I mean, he hasn't really done anything.
Hasn't done anything. He killed a dog with his bare hand.
You were there to see
Look,
that?
he's been going out there night after night with absolute disregard for his safety and ours.
Here again, switching point of views in it. This is Sebastian's point of view, and then when we cut closer, it's really the normal scene, and then we cut backwards again, Sebastian's point of view, and we cut forward again, and it is the normal scene, and then the third cut and fourth cut here is again a point of view shot of Sebastian outside Dr. Kramer's house. This is all. This is real. This is shot in Washington, or a little bit outside Washington, in fact. Here in the way back, we cheated the whole window out. There's a window in between, but we just the way we did it, you don't see that window. We saw it the first time. We went on the way back. We took it out.
Funny.
It took forever to get there. So by some clever editing by Mike Goldblatt, we got rid of it.
That looked pretty seamless to me.
Yeah, no, you don't see it at all.
Yeah.
A
No.
little late for apologies.
Howard?
Again, this is not studio. This is really what was there.
How bad?
Included the whole garden later and the swimming pool. That's one of the few locations we used in Washington.
But
And
you
of
did the effects work for the pool out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, let's say all the shots, basically the fight between the two, most of the shots of the fight, 90% of the shots of the fight between Sebastian and Dr. Kramer are shot in a studio pool. Yeah,
Quite a,
we reconstructed the pool in Sony Studios.
And they're using a underwater motion control camera, which an underwater camera is one thing, a motion control camera is another thing. But an underwater motion control camera is quite a job.
Well, it's difficult because of all the wetness. It's difficult to repeat the moves, you know, that you have to do because we have to paint Sebastian out. We have to repeat every move of the fight underwater. Has to be shot twice, once with the actors and one without. And if the camera doesn't repeat the move because it's so wet and the wheels start to slip, you don't get it anymore.
I'll never forget when you were just about to shoot it the next day and you came back on the set with your head wet. And you just dunked your head in the pool and it was cloudy.
Yeah.
And we were unable to shoot for another, I don't know, what was it, another month or so.
To realize that everything that was done here is really Kevin Bacon fighting in a black suit in this case with Dr. Kramer. And the white shot you just saw, that was really on location, but all the rest is another pool that we built, like the pool you saw in Washington. And then after taking the Sebastian Kevin Bacon out of the shot, we replaced him by this water model.
And apparently, I think Scott said something to me, Scott Anderson, the effects guys, that it was difficult to use a stuntman for something like this because any variance between the stuntman's body and the information in the computer from the digital man made for an overlap that made their work a little bit harder.
Yeah, because they're missing or have something extra, and then it doesn't fit anymore. Because they didn't scan the stuntman into the computer, only Kevin. So they could nearly not use the stuntman in these very precise scenes because you would see that it was not exactly the same, and so they had to invent part of Dr. Kramer's body again. So it would have been very difficult.
Hey, when did he get back?
Yeah. He's been wandering around the lab ever since.
You know, watching this, I've become aware of how many monitors you have in the background
Right.
during the shooting. Was that difficult to get them all synced up?
No, but basically,
Seems like in every scene there's a computer screen.
it's difficult to do them in a way that they're not always the same, first of all. And there was a gigantic computer program there, where a whole room full of, let's say a control room, where somebody was, programming all these computers every time a bit differently for every scene.
It's actually a whole separate effects team, right? Banned from the ranch.
Yeah, only working on the computers, right?
Mister, please. Hello?
I mean, this is easy in this case because all these computers are on standby, so that was one of the more easy computer scenes.
No, there's no outside line here either.
You better go up and alert security.
So here is really the moment that the movie is, in fact, goes into a much more, let's say, motoric drive, isn't it?
Yeah, it really shifts tones here and becomes much more an homage to the genre, I think.
Right.
Let me try mine.
Becomes genre.
Well, it becomes genre, yes. Okay.
159.
Authorization invalid. Request
Well, it follows more, and let's say what you would say, a bit more normal pattern. The beginning is completely different and has never been done before. From a story point of view, has never been done. Of course, people that are caught in a haunted house, of course, has been done in different ways. Yeah.
Into the security system.
Already in.
Some security system. The system's fine. It's just he's extraordinary.
Apparently someone's more extraordinary than me.
What is it?
There's nothing wrong with the system. Our access codes have been removed. There's only one left.
So this means we're trapped?
We'll get it.
Let me have one.
I mean, here's a very effective shot coming up. Let's say one of these shock shots.
Never forget your thermal goggles.
Yeah. It's interesting how unexpected and because of the expressionist colors, how effective that shot is.
Yeah.
He's not in here.
Okay, Sebastian, fun's over. Tell us where you are.
Sorry, Linda, but I can't let you turn me in.
That's really a very nice way of using acoustics and dialogue only, isn't it? This scene. I mean, you were sitting in another room somewhere, isn't it? Listening to them, and basically we made it as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting because you said everything very close to the microphone. It's very close up for sound, but it works very well. And they amplified it in this room and put it there some different system, but you might not hear so well on the DVD because you don't have then exactly this wonderful surround system, at least not in such a precise way as in a theater. But I think you still get an idea what's
Unless
happening.
you're really, really rich.
Yeah.
And you got a really great sound system at home.
Well, sometimes some people have that.
Some people have that.
In Los Angeles, I mean.
Right here. Well, I actually was. I mean, the amount of looping that I did, honestly, was very, very minimal.
Yes.
I mean, time and time again, you went with production, which, of course, I really admire. And I remember when we were testing things like the sound of the voice in the mask, I was a little concerned that because the nasal passages were closed off and the ears and the talking through the dentures and the green dentures, that it would somehow, affect the voice in a really negative way. And, you kind of made a good point and said, well, he's wearing a mask, so his voice would be affected.
Right, a little bit, yeah.
And it ends up, I think, being pretty effective,
Yeah, it's just a slight difference, isn't it? You feel that there is something off, but it's not really annoying or something that you listen to a kind of, if you would really close your nose, but kind of doesn't sound like that.
Well, what's funny is that we thought, that if we needed to replace dialogue, that would be easy because, you don't need the lip sync because you're not there.
Right.
But what we found in the couple things that we tried is that the performance is so specific to the body language, that you couldn't throw anything in there.
Yeah,
It'd be very judicious.
It didn't work. You're almost more aware of it because I'm not there, because you're sort of on your guard for something being added later or for it being voiceover. Of course, when I did loop a couple of lines in the mask, I put the mask back on.
Yeah, we looped it with the mask.
The same guy came and glued. I didn't have to wear the whole thing, but I wore, the whole the face part of it.
Do they make you eat a Twinkie? No.
We've got movement. Corridor 6.
There he is.
Got it.
What you see there on the video is another computer program, isn't it? With the little dots that move around.
Ready? Yeah, let's do it.
Take a left to the next corridor. He's working his way back.
We split here. Can we trap him in corridor 8?
He keeps heading in that direction.
All right, I'm on
I was
fire.
trying to think of what other scenes were cut, Paul. I can't even think
Not
of
much here anymore.
I
you
forgot
know.
about the
No,
scene with the dog
no.
and Sarah.
Anything?
I can't break the encryption, but I think we can climb out. There's an access ladder in the elevator shaft.
No, I don't. It's more that sometimes a little accelerations inside the scene, but it's
right.
exactly like it was written. I think everything here.
Yeah.
And anyhow, we shot
much.
the script mostly like written, isn't it? We didn't change something at all.
Well, everything that works really well was just written. Everything that doesn't work as well.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, man.
Dr. Kane?
Again, this was just
Taking him down.
Sebastian standing behind some pipes.
With some
It's
steam coming up, right?
Yeah, with some steam coming up. It's done in a very normal way, really. It's using the thermal camera. And in the next shot, when Carter hangs there, of course he was hanging on some extra lines, because to hold him in that grip there is very difficult. And what we did then later is paint the steel, the lines, the ropes that he's hanging on were painted out. That was a puppet. When he hits the steel bar, for the 1 second that the blood sprouts out and he hits it, that is a puppet of Carter. That is looks very identical, in fact.
It was actually kind of creepy walking around set during those days, because they have the section they're working on very well lit, and the other sections would be dark, and all the dead bodies that they were using would just be out. And so
Right,
you'd
they
walk
left
around,
them
there
out
was,
there
like,
for
dead
weeks,
Carter,
it seemed like.
dead
Yeah.
Janice.
But they all look very much alike,
Yeah.
didn't it? They were really
They're
well
like
done.
very
yeah.
lifelike.
He's still there.
Of course, they're made from actual plaster casts of
Yeah.
people's heads.
Right.
It's just quite an experience if you've never had your head casted.
I'm losing resolution.
Heat. He's pumping out heat. You won't be able to see him.
As you know, there are two companies that worked on the picture, the SPI, Sony Imageworks, and Phil Tippett Studios in San Francisco. And the shots of the smoke here, when he uses the fire extinguisher, and you see Sebastian outlined in the smoke. That is done by Phil Tippett, as is later Sarah when she throws blood over him, or the scenes in the swimming pool, or with the sprinklers. All the other stuff is done by Sony Imageworks. So everything with the muscular man throughout the movie, the transformations and everything like that, the mask and Sebastian at the very end of the movie is done by SPI under the supervision of Scott Anderson.
Even with Linda.
She left you, remember? Jeez.
I don't know if you're aware, Andrew, but it wasn't until we got to the set that I had to explain to Yost and Paul what Marco Polo actually was.
Oh, yeah?
He had no idea.
Well,
One
this
being
is
German
the-
and one
that
being
joke-
Dutch. It's not
They
a game
don't have
that's
that
played.
game in
They don't have
Europe.
that game
No.
at all?
I had no idea what it was. No.
Again, I thought it was a great callback to earlier on in
Yeah.
the script, and again, he's exercising his power. You know, he's playing power games. He's having a lot of fun.
Well, he said to me, Paul was explaining to me, he said, you know, you come over here and you go Marco Polo, and you come over here and you go Marco Polo. I said, well, that's not really the way the game works. You got to go Marco Polo.
Hey, you know.
I'm sure there's a lot of Dutch games that I don't know anything about.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really different to catch up, especially in these very American things. You know, even if you live here for 50 years, you still don't know.
Sebastian!
Sarah? I told him to meet us here.
Noble Sarah trying to save her colleague's life. And look what happens.
Right? Oh, God.
It's the only time, probably in any movie ever, that people got away with so much blood without being forced by the FPA to take it out. You know,
It's a lot of blood, but it's not coming from a person.
I know, but basically we were still afraid that they would say, "Well, there's too mumuch blood," and then basically there wouldn't have been much of a scene anymore.
This, of course, was my hardest. I don't know, 4 or 5 days I took to shoot this because I had to be covered in green from the waist up, which means that I have to be painted white first and then green on top of the white and spray painted. And then we come out on the set and they throw 1 pack of blood on me, and I have to go back and remove the blood. Of course, the blood takes off the green and it has to be put back on, and it was pretty bad.
But as you can see, we tried to figure out how to visualize the Invisible Man, as many ways as we could, with the steam, with blood, with water, just so you got a sense that the person was there.
And I think the blood is extremely effective because it's more sticky, isn't it? It has a certain thickness, so that you feel more like a secondary skin. I think with the water it's more difficult because that's so thin, such a thin layer, and it has much less viscosity. So it always looks a bit. This looks easily more convincing than basically when it gets out of the swimming pool. I feel personally.
Yeah.
Although later when he's in the sprinklers, because there's continuously a lot of water over him, as is expressed as a waterfall, it works too, I feel. Yeah. And it also gets some thickness then there.
Where's Sarah? He needed blood. She went alone? He would have died.
He's dead. Come on. Run!
Wait!
Sarah?
Again, you're going to see a couple of, let's say, digital shots there later. For example, when Frank gets killed, when you see the crowbar coming through his body, and Sebastian visible as a kind of a ghost-like image in the background. Sebastian is really, Kevin is doing that, but it's copied by that, let's say, a figure that you see there now here. And the crowbar that gets through is a digital crowbar. We had just a little explosion on his chest and added the crowbar digitally later. So now it looks really as if the crowbar goes right through his body. This is all real, although of course the wound that is there is just built upon his body. Also, when the temperature goes down, and you see later that there is all this breeze coming out, breathing out of their mouths, is the fog. That was all done digitally.
It's funny, I've seen that before, the breath coming out of the mouth, and it's better. It's come a long way since when the first time I saw it.
For the first time, yeah.
I'm trying to think when it was, but
well, we spent an enormous amount of time in getting it because I also felt in other movies where I had seen it that it always looked fake.
Well, I'll tell you, when we did Apollo 13, we cooled the soundstage to about 38 degrees and sucked on hot liquids all the time and actually got the breath.
Right.
It was amazing because you'd have to come out of the 90-degree heat and everyone put their coats on and come onto the soundstage.
Well, we tried that first. It was so difficult to keep the temperature on that level.
It's very unpleasant.
So that we decided to do digitally and to avoid. We spent more time than normal to really follow the rhythm of the voices and the breathing and make more, let's say, show more of the breathing when they were talking fast and all that set. So we really followed all the syllables and everything to make it as precise as possible, so that it wouldn't look fake. I think it's extremely convincing.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very
good.
And
we didn't push it too hard so that this not stands out. You accept it as it is, but it's not.
It also helps that there's a little bit of steam in the background already.
Right.
But it really is much. It's come a long way. What a handsome guy.
Hello, face.
Yeah. You see, there's one difference in this mask. Now we made openings for the nose. the holes in the nose. We added that. Normally that's closed in all the other mask shots, and we made better lips so that he would just suggesting that it would be easier for him to go into society again.
And it's a smoother mask.
Yes,
right?
yeah. In fact, it's a touch different. We made another mask that didn't have all these wrinkles and all these strange things. Yes.
How'd you do that?
Well, they just made another mold, really.
No,
the
teardrop.
tear.
Oh, that was there was nothing there. Basically, the only thing we did is that little plastic thing that we glued to her skin that looks like a tear, and added everything that before, like the say the water coming in her eye and dripping down. That's digital.
Okay.
And then when her fingers goes towards it, then it's still digital. When she takes it off the skin, then it's the thing that we glued her anyhow. So she takes off a real thing, but everything before is digital.
Okay.
It's a nice moment.
Yeah, it works very well. Huh? I always thought that basically her and Sebastian, that this is a scientific fight, isn't it? That's how you wrote it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
One science against the other. Female science against male science. Which is constructive versus destructive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a shock to be there and throw this little bottle and see this explosion that's coming up, because it was kind of explained to me, but I had no idea quite how big it would be.
Right.
So, having never seen a test of it, it was interesting.
You mean this one?
This one. Hello. You can see me kind of lean back there for a second. I was like, oh, okay.
You cannot see it, but the thing that she holds in her hands is held on the other side with little wires, and somebody else is holding it in position and follows her moves. So it's through a very thin slit. Basically, the wires are moving through the door.
This is definitely, this is not for somebody that wants the magic ruined for them, you know? It's like they're giving all the tricks away.
Well, that's okay. I think basically that these are, I think this is for the people that want the tricks.
That's
Right.
what the commentary is
so.
for.
Well, talking about tricks, the flamethrower that she constructs is completely real. It's basically all the elements that she uses and has put together, and if you have that's inflammable gas inside it, that's what happens, you know. So it's really that's not a trick, in fact.
Authorization, please.
And her handling it, shooting in the close shots, that's really always Elizabeth Shue.
I can't let you leave.
Sorry, babe. You don't have a choice.
Oh, yes, I do.
Elevators used a lot. It's a lot of it. Me going in and out of it, right?
Yeah.
Similar kind of shots of the door closing at the beginning of the film.
You see that we made extra holes there in the body there. When you see it opening up and stuff, that is digital additions. When you see the flames inside his body. For the rest, it's all real, but there's little additions to make it a bit more spectacular. And this is you basically, isn't it?
Yeah. I had a blue suit on that had pieces of that kind of fleshy material on top of it, so that they removed the blue and you still saw some of the flesh.
And then they constructed the whole thing around that, really.
I love this kind of turning into the ash and just floating away. It's so great.
I mean, to do the scene with the water, we had the whole set surrounded by, how we say, the little, how you call it, the little dike.
Yeah,
isn't
the canal kind of thing.
Right.
It was pumping the water out, I guess, and then
yeah, and then using it again to come down.
there's a lot of water.
I always knew you were a bitch!
That wound that was already painted in when she flies towards the wall. But in the first part we painted it out, so when she after the hit, it's what you see is real. And this is really your feet that are used there and your body, isn't it? That we just replaced by this three-dimensional water model. And then we basically, by a second pass of the camera, we, like you see also in the next shot, when you look through the whole body, through the three-dimensional body, we stole the background from another plate, from another pass of the camera, so you can still look through him and use that. And this is different models using a water model and a skeleton model and dissolving one into the other all the time.
Mom, I heard an explosion.
No, don't touch it!
What?
Nitro.
We gotta stop it.
No, we can't. Come on!
Why can we not do that?
Access ladder in the elevator.
Well, there was an explanation in the script, but apparently it was too long.
Can you climb?
Do I have a choice?
In the script they tried to, but it was hardwired in. There was no plug.
Right.
I asked Paul the other day, how did you blow up the set? He said, well, we just blew it up.
Right. Well, that's what it is, yeah.
I thought for sure, you know.
This elevator shaft was built against the garage of the parking lot of the Sony studios. So we had made we just built it on the outside, so we had access because of the levels of the parking garage. We had access to every height that we wanted. Could open the walls and put the camera, let's say, looking inside from the parking lot, kind of. Then we built a platform. Every 20 feet we built a platform around the parking garage so we could have access to that shaft from every angle. And this is real, you know, this is just blowing up the lab. I mean, we used about 14 cameras for all these shots. And of course it was so dangerous that all cameras had to be basically motion controlled.
What do you mean motion controlled?
Well, nobody was there with
remote.
the cameras. They were all
remote controlled.
Remote control.
Right, yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Someone's telling me the explosion was so intense it warped some of the walls.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They started to bend. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of this is model. Some of that is shot in the real elevator. When it's further away, it's always a model. The flames are added later. When she gets hit there, she got hit by something that was, let's say, a green piece of steel that brushes through her arm and later is replaced by the elevator. So this is what you see there is a model. This is real. This is a model. Of course, clearly this is real. And this is a model again. This is something we did on reality, and most of these shots are models, but pretty big models, so you get a really feeling of weight. And this is them in the elevator shaft, the elevator added to that from a model pass, and then combine them. This last shot, the wide shot, where it comes to a standstill, that is us using the real elevator and dropping it down half a yard. So that really stops just above their head, is hanging on very strong cables.
What scale is the model?
It's a quarter.
Quarter.
So that is just a real elevator. The fire you see in the background underneath them is added later. Then again here, this is Kevin in a green suit, isn't it? You were here.
Yeah, green suit.
And that the green suit is completely taken out and replaced by the three-dimensional muscular model. That's all pretty real here. And this was done all blue screen backgrounds, and basically in the wider shots, it's just them hanging on a platform, and then the whole elevator underneath them is added. Some of the shots when you see the ladder breaking down are real. And of course, this is again completely real, with the exception that Kevin is only partially real.
kiss.
This was very difficult to get this amount of detail in such a big close shot without betraying that it is a digital figure.
Go to hell.
The decelerator.
Yeah, you're hanging on something that should drop down, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a plate that you lie back on, and then there's a thing called a decelerator, which drops you backwards and sort of stops you right before you hit a pad.
Again, everything you see beneath her is added later. The fire.
Get out the marshmallows.
Oh, God. Not anymore.
This is resolving some philosophical issues here, isn't it, I think. And here back on location in Washington.
You think it's going to win the award for the world's longest credit roll? A lot of people worked on the movie.
Yeah, it's about 350 or something like that, or 400.
And how many effect shots are in the film?
560.
560.
I think 2/3 was done by Sony Imageworks and about 1/3 by Tippett Studios. I mean, the visual effects supervisor there, Greg Hayes, is the second in command at Tippett Studios and worked with me on RoboCop and Starship Troopers. In fact, Tippett Studios and Sony Imageworks were the two companies that mostly did all the work on Starship Troopers. Phil Tippett doing all the insects and Sony Imageworks doing all the models and all the spaceships. So they knew each other pretty well, and therefore it was quite easy when we start to realize that there was much more work than we anticipated, and it would also be more difficult, and we needed more computers to pull it all off. It was kind of a normal decision to go back to Tippett Studios to help us out. So they came in a bit later, but they worked on the movie for about 9 months.
How different is the process of directing such a special effects intensive movie in terms of your preparation and what you're doing on set every day?
Well, first of all, you have to storyboard it much more precisely. On the other hand, it felt a little bit more pleasant here than in other movies, and because the special effect was an actor, and everything that was done special effect wise had also to be done by the actor himself. Mostly, I mean, a certain percentage, of course, like with the gorilla, not. But so the fact that Kevin always could interact with the other actors made it gave it less of the feeling of special effect, and at least prevented you to let's say to give too much emphasis on the special effects.
Because you're always directing the performance of the effect by directing Kevin.
Right. And otherwise you do special effects, and the difficulties of the special effects are then normally at the cost of the actors. Of course, now it goes at the cost of the actors because of everything you have to repeat with the second camera moves. Is kind of delaying, and all the actors are waiting, and it's difficult, I think, for the actors then to keep contact with the previous scene, isn't it?
Well, it's hard to get a flow, and also the way you shot it, which works great for the film, is instead of a traditional kind of coverage where you do masters and then singles and overs, you have a series of, you take one scene and you have a series of flowing shots that work for a certain amount of dialogue, and then it goes to another shot, and
Right.
it goes to another shot, very little coverage. So when you do that, you do 3 or 4 lines of the scene, and then a couple hours later you're doing another 3 or 4
Right.
lines of the scene. So that presents its own challenges. They try to keep some kind of flow, from beginning to middle
Right.
to end. Also, I mean, motion control camera, just the amount of time that it takes to shoot plates means that it's very hard to get a run at it. Of course, visually, it ends up working so great because, I mean, as we were talking before, it's one thing to do an effect shot with a locked off camera. It's another one to have them all be moving shots.
Right.
It's really it's really stunning.
I think what is the fact that these shots are longer and the camera is floating from between the actors. Also, the camera floats between the special effect and the actors. So you see, part of the shot is really looking at the bed where the special effect is happening, and the camera pans or zips to the side, and you see the actors. But by having it in one shot, I always feel that the special effect is more convincing than cutting away to the actor and then cutting back to the special effect, because then you know for sure that it's a special effect. When you integrate it more in the flow of the camera, it feels like it's part of one space-time area, and I think that is in the advantage of the audience, because they are less aware of the fact that you do tricks. So that's why I felt that it was important to keep the special effects, make them part of the performance of the other actors, and by going back and forward between them without cutting.
Oh, right. I see.
Well, I think we're done here, isn't it? I think so, huh?
Hey, I'm Kevin Bacon. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Paul Verhoeven, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I'm Andrew Marlowe, and thank you for watching.